When and why far leftist critics flip. Hey, it's Prince of Queens, and by now you've probably noticed a number of people who were once heavily criticizing feminism, Marxism, and defended free speech, all of a sudden all but disavowing their previous positions and going on to mostly tweet, post comments on Facebook, and maybe make videos saying things like that the Proud Boys are every bit as bad as Antifa, and whining about Trump all day. Now granted, I say all but disavow because I don't think I have ever seen one of these people flip entirely into becoming a full-blown intersectional feminist that actually demonizes free speech. And I like to think that these people hold on to a few of their previously held positions, such as feeling that men deserve human rights too, but then again, they might start hanging out with the worst of the worst, dishonest, and illogical leftist wackos, so who knows. Regardless, I want to make this video not strictly to mock these people, because I likely have done enough of that in the past, but rather, I would like to explain from my personal vantage point what I think is actually going on in the minds of these people, because I used to be somebody that had a similar flip. Yes, I was somebody who hated PC culture during the latter part of the Clinton years, and then I hated Republicans, South Park-style humor, and gay jokes during the Bush years. And I legitimately thought that I missed the PC climate and wished it would go back to being that way. Careful what you wish for.
I love drag so much.
Yeah, I mean, I like it too. And I'm... That's the kind of personality that I like, irony, and I like...
Irony, I like camp, I like things being just over the top.
But yeah, you would kind of hope that when you have a show where the host has a "you've got she-mail" joke, he would not turn out actually to be transphobic, as it turns out that she apparently is.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Can't you just see Theron slowly easing towards the dark side while Contra deviously sips the chalice of champagne socialism next to her as if to tell the audience, "See, anti-SJWs? Not even your fallen trans hero was strong enough to resist the propaganda of my fancy lighting." Truthfully, I've definitely taken more than a few shots at Theron Meyer on my channel in the past, but I'll tell you exactly why I did it. It wasn't so much that she insulted me by being dishonest in this comment, as if to imply I had been at all pushy in requesting a stream with ContraPoints, when really, I had tweeted once and left one comment under a video a few months later, and it's not even so much the blatant hypocrisy she exhibited by accusing me of misgendering a person when I didn't even use gendered language at all, when she had actually spoken at Canadian Parliament against laws about misgendering. No, the reason why I was so deeply disappointed in Theron was because I once actually really liked her, and was overjoyed to find a young LGBT person telling the truth about feminism and male issues. Because even though Theron is trans and I'm gay, we were both expected to be intersectional drones by no later than 2015. And I wouldn't do it on a personal level, and she was speaking out about it on her YouTube channel. So, why did she stop telling the truth and bent the knee instead? Well, I think she's being honest when she says,
"You know, I honestly got scared off of the internet in a way. The last video I made on my previous channel, Dear Non-Binary People, I'm sorry. The way that people, the internet reacted, the way that a lot of my fans, long-time fans reacted, it scared me. I got scared off the internet. And you know, I'm a high anxiety person, and the thing with anxiety and adrenaline is like it can either make you fight or flee."
Here's the thing. I can really relate to her in a lot of ways, and now that it's been several months since she tried to claw at me a bit for essentially no reason, I should be the bigger person and try to say without insulting her what I think is really going on, as I legitimately went through about the exact same thing. You see, if you are a member of a minority group, like gay men or trans people, that often has a lot of jokes and downright vitriol aimed at us, When you come of age as a young person during a relentlessly PC worldwide social climate, which in my case was my far leftist environment during the Clinton years, and in Theron's case was being in Vancouver, Canada during the Obama years and a bit of Trudeau, you have a tendency to notice the authoritarian excesses of things like language policing, while taking for granted how good you have it as a minority. If I've said it once, I've said it a million times. Every far leftist thinks that other far leftists are crazy, which is what starving piranha syndrome is really all about. Every feminist can detect feminist hypocrisy or extremism. Every LGBTQIA++ activist has noticed an instance where somebody decided to get bent out of shape about something trivial that they should have let go, and if you are completely immersed in this social reality, you have a tendency to criticize it, though often without truly knowing the alternative. Some people are rather wishy-washy and say things like, "Well, I'm a feminist, but I'm a real feminist. I just don't like call-out culture. But women deserve the same rights as men," as if to imply that women don't have dramatically more rights than men. Others, like Theron Meyer, created an entire YouTube channel to complain about these people, their hypocrisy, their lies, their dogmatic ways of thinking, and I assume what type of world she wishes she lived in. But, as I said before, careful what you wish for. You see, what I think Theron learned around the time that Trump was elected was the same thing that I learned within about a few years into the Bush administration. A culture that embraces free speech, personal liberty, and cares very little about the whiniest minorities comes with its own set of problems, especially if you are a minority. Yes, it does turn out that when people feel as if they can say whatever they want about trans and gay people, a lot of people will have a lot more to say than they did when they were still scared that we'd be living in a world ruled by Queen Hillary Clinton, who they hoped would be the grand wizard of feminism. Free speech is something that I believe in very strongly, minus a few exceptions which we all know. And unfortunately for me as a gay man, there's no consistent way of defining hate speech fairly, so I'll just have to live with being insulted about my sexuality on occasion, because trying to come up with a legal way to stop people from doing this is completely unethical. So I refuse to endorse it. Thus, it's really terrifying when the social climate begins shifting and people start showing their true colors, if you don't have a very clear memory of living in a world during a period when people showed their true colors readily. And that's all there is to it. Either you sink, swim, or freak out and backpedal about your old positions. During the previous era, the legitimate right-wing bigots and right-wing types who were particularly aggressive on the internet had every reason to suck up to Theron, because they could tokenize her and fight on the same team, hoping with her help to get Trump elected. But after he was elected, they had no necessary attachment to her, so if she veered away from their talking points ever so slightly, they'd really let her have it. I imagine she was unprepared for such things, and it seemingly came as a huge shock. And so, if you're like that, you're naturally going to spend a long while trying to simply make sense of it, thinking the grass was greener, even though you know perfectly well that you were miserable standing on that not-so-green pasture. First, you probably demonize conservatives, obviously, and then you might begin to demonize people associated with the positions that you used to strongly hold if a few of them annoyed you, such as men's rights advocates, not necessarily because you have chosen to disagree with men having rights, but likely because you feel that these people ushered in this new, terrifying era. And then, of course, some people turn on the centrists, because I don't know, they are neutral during the time of injustice, or whatever.
That's why he constantly goes back to goes and chickens out of fighting against the alt-right. It's every single time he does this because he doesn't really want to fight them. He sees them as potential allies and wants them to be friends. So that rant wasn't about how their ideas were shit and why they should stop being racists. It was that they should stop being mean to him online, and he tried to sound more racist so that they would like him more. So it failed.
Okay, so I can't say I ever followed this guy David Sherritt, but I think he used to be an MRA, and he's now pretty thoroughly hated by almost everybody that I ever hear from. And it does seem to be for fairly decent reasons, because he seems like a bit of a gullible whack job in terms of how he handles the internet. But here's the thing about what he just said regarding Sargon. He's actually not wrong. I do legitimately believe that Sargon views the alt-right as potential future allies, and I'd bet $100 that if you were to ask Sargon whether that was the case, he'd ramble for about 2 or 3 minutes, but the answer would be basically, yes, in the same way I feel about any legal resident of my nation, I theoretically want the alt-right to be my allies, which is why I choose to engage with them to change their minds so that we can fight on the same team. Unfortunately, David doesn't seem to understand that, as he seemingly would prefer to be a full-scale us versus them culture warrior who flips teams occasionally instead of being neutral and fighting only when necessary, like I do and I think Sargon does. In the end, I think what's really going on here is that both David and Theron are young. They both used to probably consider themselves some sort of centrists, while considering the intersectional feminists the bad guys. In the end, however, when they got what they wanted and the intersectionals officially started losing in the court of public opinion, these people seemingly saw a new bad guy, instead of realizing there's bad guys everywhere. The new bad guy were the racists and the transphobes and whatever else type of icky and gross person that both David and Theron had probably largely rarely encountered. I was the same exact way. I basically didn't encounter homophobia during high school at my far leftist alternative school, so when it came back in fashion in the early 2000s, I wanted my safe space back, even though I knew I hated it when I had it. Ultimately, you can't entirely have it both ways, and learning that is just part of getting older. Either people are giddy with delight because they are able to go ahead and say whatever offensive thing that they want, and they do so frequently and sometimes legitimately mean those things, which is entirely awkward and sometimes really horrible, or there is a bunch of oppressive authoritarian speech codes that makes everybody miserable. Personally, that's why I've always avoided using particularly crass language in my videos that would inspire people to think I was some sort of edgelord, because when it comes to what I'm remembered for, I want it to be advocating for free speech while mostly being fairly PC myself, because I think that using PC language to get across the message of why free speech is important is actually the most effective way to get the message across to the people that you really need to convince. But, of course, I don't always sound very PC if you actually get to know me, because everybody likes to joke around on occasion. If you enjoyed this video, please send me money on PayPal. I really do need it. Thanks.